President Biden is going to be delivering a speech at the Economic Club in Washington, D.C. today. And joining us right now with a preview of the comments and much more is Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And Secretary, thank you for being here today.
Thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Strong morning for the markets. Reaction to the Fed cutting interest rates by 50 basis points. But Chairman Powell also saying at the same time that the economy is doing well, as is the job market. What can we expect to hear from President Biden today?
Well, I think the president is going to take the opportunity to offer a declaration of progress, not the same as a declaration of victory. Your work is never done when it comes to supporting the American economy. But I do think it's important to have that before and after picture, not just what our economy was going through during COVID, but also economists, really credible economists, saying there was basically a 100% chance of a recession coming. And instead, what we have is economic growth, low unemployment, and maybe most importantly for American families, we've made such enormous progress getting inflation back down. Every developed country in the world experienced a rise in prices. The U.S. was not immune to that, but what was different in the U.S. is how quickly it's been fought back down through a number of different measures, including, of course, investing in American supply chains. And that focus on everyday costs and prices for Americans, on everything from big picture industrial strategy to things like fighting junk fees in the transportation sector where I work or across our economy. That's part of what you're going to continue to see a focus on for the rest of the president's term in office.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've been talking about this morning is this potential strike of the Longshoremen's Union, taking a look at what would happen. October 1st is the deadline. These are unions that represent half of the ocean imports to this country. And President Biden has said he will not invoke a national law to prevent them from going on strike. If they do, we've already been talking this morning about what that could mean to inflation in the supply chain. What do you think can and should be done if there is no resolution between the two sides on this?
Yeah, it's certainly something we're monitoring very closely. My department has been engaged with shippers and ports up and down the East Coast. A couple of years ago, there were things coming to a head on the West Coast. It resulted in workers getting a historic contract, a much-deserved raise, and a number of other provisions that were also compatible with the companies succeeding. And of course, with any labor negotiation, the outcome you're looking for is one that is workable for the business end and delivers the kinds of things that workers need and deserve, especially when you think about workers like dock workers. None of them got a day off because of COVID. They were working through that period. They're one of the reasons why just a few months after everybody said Christmas was canceled and our supply chains were a disaster, is what they were saying in 2021. We wound up actually having record high retail sales in this country because those workers were there. So very important for that to result in a contract, as is the case with, of course, a number of important labor negotiations underway right now.
We can talk more about that, but let's just stick with this negotiation at the point. You're right. The West Coast negotiation that was reached was kind of looked at as what we thought was going to be the template for what would come next. By the way, those workers did work right through. There wasn't a strike that they shut things down while they were negotiating. They continued to work through that. That's what President Biden has said. He would not force their hand on this time around. That West Coast port strike wound up in a 32% increase for the workers over the life of the contract. I think in this case, the East Coast and Gulf Coast workers are seeking a 77% increase. Does that sound like a reasonable situation to you?
Well, we've heard different numbers put out there, but ultimately this is going to have to be worked out at the table. And that's been the case for a number of contracts we've seen in the sector. Spent a lot of time and energy earlier this year in the American Airlines flight attendants negotiation. A very intense negotiation. The result was a historic contract. Those flight attendants getting much-deserved raises, and I think also something that sets up a good future for American, which is the most unionized of the major U.S. airlines. So again, we're going to engage with everybody. We're going to watch this closely, and very important to make sure that there's a good outcome here.
You mentioned other strikes that are potentially taking place and some that are. One that is right now is the Boeing strike. 33,000 machinists on strike there at this point. The company now saying that it may need to issue furloughs. What would the impact be, or what will the impact be to, let's say, airline carriers and beyond in this nation based on what's happening right now?
Well, there's already a large and immediate impact for, of course, all of the workers who are directly involved. And while airplane orders play out over longer timescales than some other manufacturing processes, of course, that's something that the airlines are watching closely, and so are we. The first tentative agreement was something that clearly just did not fly. Overwhelming vote against it with members, but I do believe that both parties want to get to a resolution here, and hoping to see one that makes sense for the workers and that works for a company that really needs to find its way forward on so many fronts.
Yeah, cash on hand is a huge issue at Boeing right now, it looks like. Can you imagine America without Boeing?
Look, it's critically important that we have strong aerospace manufacturing in the United States. Boeing is an important, very important part of that, which is why we've stressed the importance of them meeting the highest standards of quality and safety. And, the way you engage your workforce is part of that story. But yeah, of course, aerospace manufacturing, very important, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and manufacturing more broadly. A major focus in this administration is something I really appreciate, having grown up in the industrial Midwest and looking at the level of factory investment going on right now. I think it's breaking some records. It certainly is where I come from, St. Joe County, Indiana, where I grew up, seeing the biggest investments in facilities there since I think before the Studebaker company stopped making cars in the 1960s. I was in Lansing recently meeting with building trades. They are racing to keep up with the demand. By the way, a lot of this related to EVs. EV batteries and facilities being retooled to make EVs, as well as things like data centers. There's an enormous manufacturing boom going on in this country, and every sector has a part to play, from transportation, automotive, aerospace, to sectors that didn't even exist when I was growing up in Indiana, like what's going on with these data centers and the AI-related facilities.